Hi everyone, welcome back to Life Up Education TV. I'm your host Natsune. Today I wanted to talk about life is suffering in philosophy of Buddhism, and I recently only came across to this concept. Basically, I've heard this from fascinated my European friends and American friends about how the concept of the core of the Buddhism is so differ from what they believe, and I wanted to do a little bit of research on it because I was curious. And here's what they say. Okay, so yeah, it was true that in Buddhism they describe the life as suffering, which is really sad view of life. And I wanted to know why that is. And basically, in Buddhism, there's very specific definition to the suffering. So here's what it is. In Buddhism, desire and ignorance lie at the root of suffering. By desire, Buddhism refers to craving pleasure, material goods, and immortality, all of which are wants that can never be satisfied. As a result, desiring them can only bring suffering. Ignorance, in comparison, relates to not seeing the world as it actually is. Without the capacity for mental concentration and insight, Buddhism explains, one's mind is left undeveloped, unable to grasp the true nature of things. Vices such as greed, envy, hatred, and anger derive from this ignorance. And as I digged deeper into the definition, it made more sense why they describe life as suffering, because in the suffering, I didn't understand these two things were attached, right? The first one being desire and ignorance. The first one is the desire. The second one lies with ignorance, which leads to a whole bunch of other emotions. And let's talk about desire. I think I don't necessarily like to explain neither of them or associate them directly with suffering. But yes, of course, these two things happen, and along with all the emotional expression that was described here too happen because we're all human. And desire, when it comes to desire, I think what I notice is that it's all about self-awareness, and it is so completely true. When they say no material things or instant pleasure can ultimately make you happy, oh yeah, for sure. I cannot agree more with that. And what I notice over time is that self-awareness is so important. You don't just want everything. When it comes to material goals or material things in life, you really want to define what that is that you want. And what you go for is not the benefit of the materials, but the inspiration. Use it as your inspiration to strive. And I think that's the best usage of material things. I don't think it means more than that, to be honest. Having the material, luxurious material things, or having the lifestyle. I think at the very core, when we talk about mental health and life fulfillment in general, I think the best usage of that, a material thing, is to see it as your inspiration to strive. Because over time, like I said, what I notice is your journey is what makes your life really happy. It's not about what you get, it's about who you become, So that's what I noticed. And in terms of the second one, ignorance, right? So ignorance, in this definition, it says ignorance leads people to have greed, envy, hatred, and anger. This is really interesting. I agree. I think when you are not open-minded, you just don't have the capacity in your heart to admit that you're not so important in the world, the humility, right? Because in the end of the day, literally, you can't decide what's right or what's wrong for other people. You can decide that for you, but other people also have rights as well as you do, right? They get to decide what they want in their life. And I think the best way is just really understand that, like, you know, here's why I talk about concept of love before, right? Like, and also the concept of sinful behavior. Basically, the way I describe love is like, love is not about dominating, but love is about appreciating and respecting the subject, right? Or whatever you love. And then the sinful behavior or the sinful action is, I think at the core, it means you're taking someone's free will is the ultimate sinful thing you can do to anyone, I think. So I think it's part of the nature. Maybe when you're obsessed with something, you want to dominate it. You want to make it yours, right? Like you want to make it follow your rule. And that's the way you love, like you keep loving it or something like that, right? But in reality, in your peaceful mind, like if you want to have a more peaceful mind, you kind of have to have this willingness to just accept how they are, accept how it is, how life is, and just let it go. Like create a mind that doesn't have to attach to anything, you know? And I think it's very effective way to fulfillment when you are able to craft that kind of mindset. Over time I noticed that. Okay, the next one, let's talk about this tweet that I picked up. It says, you gotta overvalue yourself sometimes. Know your worth and add taxes to it. I don't exactly know what that person meant when they say add taxes to it, but what do I think of this? I think I kind of recall this story from Gary Vee, like when he says, like, you know, people are confused about their worth, and they basically say, I don't want to waste time. I don't want to, like, time equal money. Like, I don't know if I should do A or B, right? And then the Gary's response is like, okay, so how much does your time cost? Like, how much does your time worth right now? Like, do you have a business? And then their answer is like, no, I don't have any business right now, but like, does it even worth my time to try A or B? Like, I don't want to waste any time or money. And the Gary's answer is like, well, if you don't have the business right now, like your time is basically worth zero. And I think it's so funny. Like, it's so true. It's so interesting. It's so true. I think a lot of people are like really fancy about their time. And I think if you really want to be successful, like you kind of have to be the first one that jump onto any opportunity you can get. Like you have to be willing to work in the dirt. Like when no one else, like when everyone else is so entitled that they can't do it, like you have to be the one who, like, you know, do this and then get to work, right? Like if, like, that's the amount of willingness it takes, I think, for someone to be so dedicated about what they want and what they like and succeed. So it's kind of interesting. I think depends on your personal view too, but I like to think it that way. Okay, the next one. Being selfish is not bad at times. Your health, thoughts, the feelings, and dreams matter too. Taking a little time to yourself can be best thing you'll ever need to do. Okay. And by like saying the things that I said one tweet prior to this, like I'm not saying that you know, having your own time is bad. Actually, like you just can't give away everything when you are not enough, right? Like that's something I talk about a lot too. So I think when it's necessary to basically turn something down, like say no to something because you want to take some time for yourself, and like let's say that you're lost, you don't even know what you want, and then at that time, like if you don't feel like it, that's okay too. Like you need to say no to some things. Like if you don't feel like it, you don't have to do it. And I think the harder part is that sometimes I do it. Like sometimes I blame myself. I ask myself like why am I not willing, right? But sometimes you just don't feel like it, right? And then the best thing is don't dwell on it. Like don't blame on yourself for turning down some things or not being humble sometimes. Like, I mean, sometimes you need that. And then life is never good or bad. Like life is about what happens and that's it, right? And then the best you can do is to try to do your best in a given situation, so you don't have to dwell on it. So that being said, you don't have to blame yourself when that time happens. And it's never binary. So like I said, it's never about good or bad. Like your action, like you don't have to try to define good or bad all the time. Like, but yeah, you know, just if you fuck up something, just like try to do your best. And then I think in the end of the day, what makes you successful is no matter how much you fuck up, you're willing to come back and try to do better this time, right? I think that's what counts. So that's it. I think for today, that's all I wanted to talk about. But yeah, guys, as always, thank you very much for watching, you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.